Hello, Steve. This is Dr. Bose. I'm giving you some video feedback on your literacy narrative, your first paper, your first major essay of this course, Lost in Chemical Translation. That's an interesting title, and I think the title makes a lot more sense than some of the writing that's in here. Um, I'm going to do kind of like a quick overview according to your essay about like the beginning and of the end. The first paragraph deals with metaphor. Metaphor can also be defined by how a person communicates complex information to others in a way that they will understand. It is in this manner that I use metaphor, as I use it to help myself understand complex scenarios. So metaphor is a strategy, it sounds like. Okay. I don't see anything about metaphor at all in the paper later. It's a strategy for something, and I would like to see what the paper is addressing, and that's something. Um, I'm trying to tell you that the first paragraph is kind of empty and it doesn't really reflect a lot. But it has some, um, I don't know, I guess, opportunity for doing better. Um, you say a metaphor is only applicable if the metaphor is being told to us is familiar with all the outside objects of the metaphor. You start to get really abstract here. What are these outside objects? What is this metaphor? Now, the jump, unfortunately for me, I know the result of inappropriate metaphor all too well. So maybe this paper is about this inappropriate metaphor, but that's not really clear at all, again, as I've said. Okay, then you give us the story. It was a Thursday night of a rather uneventful day, and I was tired because of the lack of sleep I was getting. Thank you, chemistry. Okay, so a day can't just be uneventful. Well, why was it uneventful? Um, well, it sounds to me like you were going through some stress. Something about the lack of sleep. Thank you, chemistry. Okay, so why? Even before we get into the paper, or even before we get into the story, provide us with more details. Readers need to see context. Okay. You need to do some very careful proofreading. Use of commas, I wasn't particularly worried about. Comma, I did everything that were required of me. Comma, and I thought it was at least CB level work. So, comma when I logged into the course. Okay, so overuse of commas. It doesn't, it's, when you put a comma in so many times, it just kind of pauses. Doesn't really help your paper grammatically. And so I need you to go into Write Yourself 2.0 and that's a really good paper. It's written by experts in the field. But in terms of style and mechanics, comma uses, concrete language, this paper is really in need of that. Concrete details. Okay. So, all right. So you talk about some grades. A grade that you got that was better than what you were expecting. You went through a checklist of all the pieces to the lab report in your head. You talk a lot about lab reports in this essay. You talk about a lot about lab reports in general, and that's clear that that you have to do a lot of that in your other classes. Okay, so this is the chance in this class, Stephen, where you actually get to tell us a little bit about the importance of that. Show off. Obviously, you love this stuff. You're doing it. Thank you, chemistry. I'm sorry, I'm quoting your paper. Yeah. Objective, method, calculation, structures. Again, what does that mean? This paper needs a lot of context. And so, anyway, there's a lot I can go on. I don't want to dwell too much on this, Stephen, but for the next paper, for the big paper that you're going to write, you need to include a lot of detail. You need to include a lot of background. And I understand that you are having some trouble initially with the stages of the genre analysis that you say that you want to redo according to one of the emails that you sent me, and that's fine. Um, I hope you do that. Um, However, you also kind of need some work working on kind of like the bigger picture. And kind of like in this essay here, you, I think the bigger picture seems to be this conflict that you had with your TA. Something where you didn't like a comment that he said. You need to give readers some a better understanding of like what that conflict was. Okay, try using layperson's language. An electron in a pi system is not a free particle. You should know this by now. Okay, so what does that mean? Why is that important? To you, that's obviously very important, but your readers aren't really going to understand that. Okay. Um, okay, there's a lot more. So I'm going to go through and kind of go through the rubric. Right now, you are in the lines of about a low, very low C here. There is a title. Hey, that's good. Is there a clear organizational structure, usually chronological? It's there. Um, you focus on a single specific literary experience. Sure, there's no details that grab the audience's attention. Um, there are no strong verbs, no general and specific language that's used appropriately. It's all pretty general. Um, Details that are relevant to the significance claim or thesis. What are your discerning details? What is your thesis? Okay, so you are at about a low C here. Um, so I need to do some soul searching when it comes down to creating or writing the next paper. Okay, thanks for listening, Stephen. Let me know if you have any questions.